Alex Eala held 4 championship points in Eastbourne last summer, and Maya Joint saved every single one of them. That fact alone should tell you everything about the psychological history between these two players heading into their Wimbledon second-round collision. Because this is not just a random matchup in the draw. This is unfinished business, and both women know it. Let me take you back to June 28, 2025. The Eastbourne Open Final. Eala, then ranked outside the top 60, had torn through the draw to become the first Filipina ever to reach a WTA Tour-level final. She won the second set 6-1. She was serving for the match in the third set tiebreak. She reached championship point not once, not twice, but 4 separate times. And Joint, who is 19 years old and already showing the composure of someone twice her age, refused to let any of them land. The final score read 6-4, 1-6, 7-6, with the match tiebreak finishing 12-10. Joint walked away with the trophy. Eala walked away with a loss that stung in a way only near misses at the finish line can sting. Now fast forward exactly 1 year. Same surface. Same country. Higher stakes. Wimbledon, second round, the most storied tennis venue on earth. Eala arrived here as the 29th seed, the first Filipina ever seeded at this tournament, ranked 32 in the world and riding the best grass court stretch of her career. Joint arrived ranked 87, having lost 11 consecutive matches on the WTA Tour before stepping onto center court yesterday and doing the unthinkable, beating Serena Williams in 3 sets on the American legend's long-awaited singles comeback. So the question this entire match will answer is simple. Which version of each player shows up? The version the rankings say they are right now, or the version their shared history whispers they could become when they see each other across the net? Start with Eala, because her 2026 grass court body of work is genuinely remarkable. She opened the surface swing at the Birmingham Classic in early June and won the entire tournament, her second WTA 125 title, beating Nikola Bartankova in a grueling 3-set final, 5-7, 6-3, 7-5. That title alone confirmed something her coaching team at the Rafa Nadal Academy had been building toward for over a year: her left-handed game, with its naturally skidding serve and flat ground strokes, was made for grass. The low bounce rewards her timing. The faster pace rewards her instinct to take the ball early. And her net skills, which on clay and slower hard courts can feel like an indulgence, become a genuine weapon when the geometry of approach shots tightens on a surface that penalizes passivity. After Birmingham, she went to Queen's Club for the HSBC Championships and promptly ran into a buzzsaw named Iva Jovic, losing 6-2, 6-2 in the second round. That scoreline looked alarming on paper. But what happened next made it irrelevant. Eala traveled to Berlin for the WTA 500 event and produced the 2 finest back-to-back victories of her season. First, she dismantled world number 2 Elena Rybakina, 7-5, 6-4, in the round of 16. Then she dispatched world number 8 Alina Svitolina, 6-3, 6-4, to reach the semifinals. 2 consecutive top 10 scalps on grass. For a 21-year-old who had never beaten a top 10 player on this surface before Berlin, those results were not incremental progress. They were a categorical announcement. Eala eventually lost in the Berlin semifinals to Linda Noskova, 6-2, 6-4, and then suffered a first-round exit at Bad Homburg against Elise Mertens. That inconsistency matters. It tells you that her ceiling on grass is genuinely elite, capable of trading with top 5 players and coming out on top, but her floor can still drop without warning when she faces opponents who disrupt her rhythm rather than feed it. Rybakina and Svitolina both play styles that Eala's counterpunching game can exploit. Jovic and Noskova play styles that suffocate it. Where does Joint fall on that spectrum? That is the tactical question at the center of this match. Against Zara Zua in the first round, Eala was clinical in a way that suggested real Wimbledon comfort. She won 6-1, 6-2 in just 77 minutes. She hit 22 winners. She went 16 for 21 on net approaches. She faced only 2 breakpoints and saved both. The aggression was controlled rather than reckless, the kind of performance that comes from a player who trusts where she is going with each point and is not second-guessing her patterns mid-rally. Her lefty serve pulled Zarazua wide on the advantage side repeatedly, and when the return came back short, Eala was already moving forward to close the point. That serve +1 pattern is the foundation of her grass court identity, and it was functioning at a very high level. Now look at Joint. The numbers paint a stark picture. Her 2026 season record entering Wimbledon stood at 2 wins and 13 losses. She has won just 15% of her matches this year. Her ranking has plummeted from a career high of 28 in February to 87 by the time the Wimbledon draw was released. She suffered an injury after Indian Wells that kept her off the tour for 2 months, and when she came back, nothing clicked. First-round exits at Roland Garros, Nottingham, and Eastbourne, the very tournament she won 12 months ago. Her serve, which was never a dominant weapon to begin with, has cratered to the point where she is winning only 46% of her service games in 2026. She averages fewer than 1.5 aces per match. Her first serve speed ranks in the bottom 6% of the tour. And yet, she just beat Serena Williams on center court. Not with flawless tennis. Not with some miraculous serving display. She won because she competed. She took the first set 6-3, lost a tightly contested second set tiebreak 8-6 when Williams showed flashes of vintage power, and then broke Williams 3 times in the deciding set to close out the match 6-3. She ran everything down. She made Williams play one more ball than the American wanted to play on almost every point. And in the moments that mattered most in that third set, Joint was the one who found clean hitting while Williams netted and pushed long. Here is what that Serena match does and does not tell us about Joint heading into the Eala match. It tells us that whatever psychological crisis the losing streak had created, the act of walking onto center court and beating a 23-time Grand Slam champion, even a 44-year-old one returning from 4 years away, has given Joint something no training session or pep talk could provide. Momentum born from survival. She admitted in her post-match interview that she barely slept the night before, that her legs would not move during the warm-up, that she did not know how she managed to start the match so well. That kind of honest disorientation, followed by a 3-set victory, suggests a player who found something during the match rather than arriving with it. The question is whether she can access that state again in 48 hours against a very different opponent. What it does not tell us is that Joint has solved the problems that have plagued her all year. Williams was playing her first singles match in nearly 4 years. Her movement was limited. Her court coverage, while occasionally brilliant, faded in the third set. Joint's ground game was effective against an opponent who could not sustain baseline pressure for extended rallies. Eala is 21 years old, has been playing competitive matches every week for months, and hits the ball harder from the baseline than Williams was hitting it yesterday. The speed of the ball coming off Eala's racket, particularly off the forehand wing and the lefty serve, will be meaningfully faster and more consistent than anything Joint faced on center court. Tactically, this is a matchup that should favor Eala on almost every measurable axis. She is taller by 5 inches. She hits flatter, which on grass means her shots stay lower and skid through the court faster. Her left-handed serve creates angles that right-handed players struggle to neutralize, particularly on the advantage side where Eala can swing the ball wide into the backhand or jam it into the body. Joint is a competent returner historically, but in 2026, she has struggled to pressure even average servers. Eala is not an average server. Her serve is not a dominant first-strike weapon in the Rybakina sense, but it is awkward, angled, and precise enough to consistently generate short returns or outright free points on grass. But here is where the Eastbourne final haunts the analysis. Because the numbers said Eala should have won that match too. She was the better player for most of that final. She won the second set so thoroughly that the 6-1 scoreline suggested Joint had nothing left. And then Joint found something. She found a way to absorb pressure, to redirect it, to make Eala feel the weight of closing out a match she was supposed to have already won. Joint's greatest strength is not any single shot or tactical pattern. It is her capacity to stay in matches that she appears to be losing. Her ability to extend rallies, to force her opponent to hit one more ball, to make the finish line feel further away than it should. On grass, Where points are shorter and the margin for that kind of grinding is narrower, this quality becomes less reliable. But it does not disappear. Joint's backhand is the shot that could keep her competitive in this match. It is compact, well-timed, and she disguises her cross-court and down-the-line options better than most players at her ranking level. If she can neutralize Eala's wide serves by stepping around them to take the ball on the forehand, or by slicing the backhand return low and deep to disrupt Eala's forward movement, she can potentially extend rallies into uncomfortable territory. Eala does not love being pulled into extended baseline exchanges on grass. She is at her best when the point is moving forward, when she is dictating with her first 2 or 3 shots and closing at the net. Every rally that stretches past 7 or 8 strokes becomes terrain that favors Joint's patience over Eala's aggression. The serve will likely be the deciding factor, and here Eala holds an enormous advantage. Joint's service numbers this year are genuinely alarming. Winning fewer than half of her service games means she is getting broken almost every other time she steps to the line. Against a player like Eala, whose return game has been sharpened by months of competitive grass-court tennis and whose left-handed returns generate angles that pull servers out of their comfort zone, Joint could face serious trouble holding serve in the early going. If Eala breaks early, the match could follow the same pattern as the Zarazua win, controlled, efficient, and over before the crowd has settled in. But Joint has been here before. Specifically, she has been in a position where she was supposed to lose to Eala and did not. The psychological residue of that Eastbourne final cuts both ways. For Joint, it is proof that she can survive Eala's best tennis and find a way to win when the pressure is at its highest. For Eala, it is a memory that could create hesitation at precisely the wrong moment. Consider. What happens if Eala builds a commanding lead, finds herself a breakup in the second set, and then Joint starts chipping away? Does Eala tighten? Does the memory of those 4 unconverted championship points creep into her racket hand? Or has the year of growth since Eastbourne, the Birmingham title, the Rybakina and Svitolina victories, the achievement of becoming a Grand Slam seed, given her enough psychological armor to close the door this time? The context of the match matters too. Joint just played 2 hours and 22 minutes in a physically and emotionally draining 3-setter against Williams. The adrenaline of that match was extraordinary, the kind of chemical rush that can carry a player for a day and then leave them hollow. The turnaround between matches at Wimbledon is typically 48 hours, which is enough time to recover physically but perhaps not emotionally. Joint poured everything into that center court performance, including the emotional labor of beating her childhood idol in front of a crowd that desperately wanted her to lose. That kind of expenditure has a cost, and it often shows up not in the first set of the next match, but in the third, when the legs get heavy and the mind starts to drift. Eala, by contrast, spent just 77 minutes on court in her first round. She was barely tested. She used minimal physical and emotional reserves. She goes into this second-round match fresher, sharper, and carrying the quiet confidence of a player who controlled her opening assignment from start to finish. There is one more dimension to consider: the crowd. Wimbledon crowds are knowledgeable, and they love an underdog narrative, but they also respond to quality. Joint will arrive carrying the reflected glory of her Serena victory, which makes her a sympathetic figure. But Eala is a genuinely compelling story in her own right, the first Filipina seeded at this tournament. A player from a country with no historical tennis infrastructure who has climbed to number 32 in the world through years of work at an academy in Mallorca, far from home. Both players will have vocal support. Neither will be playing in a hostile environment. The crowd factor is likely a wash, which means the match will be decided on the court, by the rackets, and by whoever manages the pressure better. My honest assessment is that Eala wins this match, and she probably wins it in straight sets. The disparity in current form is too large. The disparity in serve quality is too large. The physical freshness gap is real. Eala has beaten 2 top 10 players on grass in the last 2 weeks. Joint has lost 11 of her last 14 matches on tour. The Eastbourne final was a year ago, and Eala is a meaningfully different player now. She is fitter, her grass court movement has improved, her net game is sharper, and she has the institutional confidence of a seeded player at a Grand Slam. But can Joint shock her? The answer has to be yes, because Joint already shocked her once. And the mechanisms of that shock remain operational. If Joint's backhand finds its rhythm early, if Eala's first serve percentage dips below 60%, if the match goes to 3 sets and Joint locates that inexplicable gear she found against Serena, if Eala feels the ghost of Eastbourne at a critical moment, any of these scenarios could shift the match into territory where Joint thrives and Eala does not. The percentage play says Eala advances. The grass court evidence says Eala advances. The head-to-head says Joint has the blueprint. And Wimbledon, more than any other tournament on earth, has a way of honoring the player who simply refuses to leave the court. Joint has already proven this week that she is that player. Whether she can prove it twice in 4 days, against a seeded opponent playing the best grass court tennis of her life, is the question that makes this particular second-round match worth watching with genuine attention. The draw gave them each other again. What they do with it belongs to no one's prediction.